Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the Gina Carano situation? Another question here is, was she fired for being a conservative? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. So first I'll look at the background of Gina Carano. I'll talk about the incidents, and I'll move to my analysis. Starting with the background, Gina Carano was born in Texas on April 16, 1982. She was raised in Las Vegas, Nevada. Her mother was a casino executive, and her father was a professional football player. She was an athlete in high school and majored in psychology for 3 years at the University of Nevada. She became active in martial arts, specifically Muay Thai, and eventually in mixed martial arts, otherwise known as MMA. She had 7 victories before being defeated by Chris Cyborg in August of 2009. There appeared to be some other plans for her to return to MMA, but nothing ever came through. Before what appeared to be the end of her MMA career in 2009, Carano had starred in the 2005 movie Ring Girls. She would go on to be featured in a number of other movies, including Fast and the Furious 6 and Deadpool. She was in several television series as well, including American Gladiators and The Mandalorian, where she played Cara Dune. This brings us to the controversy. In August of 2020, users on Twitter asked Carano to support the Black Lives Matter movement. However, Carano liked posts criticizing the movement. Later, Carano appeared to mock preferred gender pronouns when she listed her preferred pronouns on her Twitter profile as beep, bop, boop. She later modified her profile after saying that Pedro Pascal, a co-star on The Mandalorian, he actually plays The Mandalorian, helped her understand what the pronouns meant. In February 2021, Carano posted a message on Instagram that appeared to compare the current treatment of Republicans by Democrats to how Jews were treated by the Nazis. Disney issued a statement stating that Carano was no longer employed by them and would not appear in future Star Wars projects. United Talent Agency dropped Carano the same day. So the first question here would be, was Disney within their legal rights? So can somebody be fired for protected free speech? The First Amendment protects free speech, but it protects people from the government, not from big corporations or from private citizens. Disney, of course, is a big corporation. What I find interesting about Disney appearing to advocate for the left, or at least taking sides against the right, is that left-wing extremists tend to be anti-corporation, just like right-wing extremists are anti-government. Both types of extremism are rooted in fear. Fear of corporations on one side, again, and fear of the government on the other. I view cancel culture primarily as a left-wing conspiracy theory, much like the anti-vaccination movement. Again, it's a fear that big corporations are harming people in the population, that there's some type of evil conspiracy, and instead of involving the government, it's companies. Left-wing extremists attempt to manipulate corporations by having them cancel political opponents. Among other goals, this is to convince the conspiracy theorist that they can dominate these companies. It proves that the companies haven't grown so large that the population cannot control them. Disney essentially caved to left-wing conspiracy theorists by firing Gina Carano, who, based on her post about the stolen election myth, appears to embrace some right-wing conspiratorial thoughts. Disney was trying to beat one type of conspiracy theory by siding with another. I think this speaks to an astonishing level of gullibility on the part of Disney and a lack of knowledge about mental health and conspiracy theories. They simply just didn't do their research, or they have some really clear bias that's deeply rooted in their value system. Moving to the next question, was Carano actually fired for being a conservative as opposed to her actions? So what this question is really getting at is that Disney could have just chosen to fire Carano because of extreme statements, not necessarily because those statements were conservative in nature. Well, I'm not a mind reader. I don't know for certain why they fired her. Although I do have to question their judgment considering how they butchered the last 3 Star Wars movies. So I'll go on a slight tangent here. I know prequel episodes had Jar Jar Binks and all that, but episodes 7, 8, and 9 were a special kind of terrible. Episode 7 was really just episode 4 redone with a planet as the special weapon as opposed to the Death Star. So what's next? The Death solar system? Now a whole solar system is a big weapon that destroys other solar systems? I think the motto of their scriptwriting team was simply, let's make it bigger. I digress. Back to the question, was Carano fired for being a conservative? I think that she probably was. Many people agree that one of the most offensive things that Gina Carano did was draw that comparison to Nazis. Therefore, if a left-leaning actor who worked for Disney did the same thing, one would think they would get fired too. Well, Pedro Pascal compared Trump supporters to Nazis. That really does seem similar to what Carano did, yet Pedro Pascal's job appears to be safe. This unequal application of a standard makes it look like Disney is trying to tip the scale. They're trying to get involved on behalf of one side over the other, which, in my opinion, is actually insulting to both sides. It could be considered discriminatory against conservatives, but it's basically saying to liberals, you can't fight your own battles on merit, you need a big corporation to step in and fight them for you. Interfering with free speech is offensive to both sides. Cancel culture doesn't bring people together, it doesn't start a meaningful dialogue, it is a simplistic, sadistic tactic meant to destroy free speech, at least for one side. It does not lead to positive change. It's often disguised as a well-intentioned boycott, like it has some type of restorative value, but in reality, it's simply anti-science and nonsensical. I don't agree with much of what Gina Carano posted. She does appear to have some extreme beliefs, but I do defend her right to say it. I don't see how her opinion should be tied to her employment if the same rules are not applied to those with extreme left-wing beliefs. So if Disney wants to fire everybody who has extreme beliefs, that's one thing. That's a fair application of the standard. But to pick and choose, that really doesn't make a lot of sense. The struggle between the left and the right is something that's considered healthy. Americans find a middle ground in many situations with which everybody can be unhappy. That is the definition of a compromise. A compromise makes everybody unhappy. Generally, when one side takes things too far, like using violence, almost everyone agrees that's not fair. That's not reasonable. It's not part of the great debate between liberal and conservative ideology. What both sides should agree on is that each side has the right to voice their opinion. The question becomes, if corporations can discriminate against conservatives, and I'm not saying that's definitely what happened here, that's just my theory, but if they can, is that fair? Is that in the spirit of the great debate? Does that help people find unhappiness in the form of middle ground? I think the art of debate gets lost in these circumstances. Many people worry about being offended, and being offended is bad. I don't like the idea that people are going around offending one another. But there are worse things. And I think losing the idea that people can disagree and try to find resolutions is more frightening than the pain of being offended. It makes sense to me that conservatives will look at this situation and say, this isn't right. But it also makes sense to me that liberals would look at this and say, this doesn't seem like a corporation who is defending free speech. Why do we need this corporation to attack political opponents? I think Disney has hurt themselves with this whole situation with Carano, alienating fair-minded people on both sides of the issue. Liberals and conservatives don't need big corporations to help them resolve their differences any more than they need the government to do it for them. People only need common sense and flexible thinking. If Disney is not going to help out in that regard, perhaps they should consider staying on the sideline and continuing to butcher Star Wars movies. If they keep releasing badly thought-out Star Wars movies, I will continue to watch them, because a bad Star Wars movie is still better than most other movies. Those are my thoughts on the Gina Carano situation. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue, and I think represent an expression of free speech, which should be protected. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be interesting. Thanks for watching.